Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Andrew Rieman, and I'm going to talk to you tonight about the article that I read, which discussed raising minimum wage. The summary of the article's title was Raising Minimum Wage is Common Sense, and it was an article written by these four authors, published by USA Today. A quick summary of the article: it proposed raising the minimum wage to $10.10 an hour. It talked about the current minimum wage federal minimum wage at $7.25 an hour, and that hasn't been raised in 9 years. The article stance was they wanted it to be raised to $10.10 an hour to keep up with inflation. One of their arguments was that if kept up with inflation since 1968, the current total or minimum wage should be $10.70 an hour. However, these authors believe that $10.10 would be sufficient. It also argued that the cost of living went up. This article used a lot of statistics and threw out a lot of percentages of increases, such as like 25% increase in the price of a gallon of gas, a 20% increase in the amount of the price of groceries, and a 44% increase in the average tuition of a community college. Some of the pros that the article had were it stated the average age of workers that were minimum wage, and it tried to use the argument that the minimum wage wouldn't just help kids, that it helps families and people raising families, and the average age of people in low income ranges below $10.10 an hour, which would be affected by this raise, was 35. It argued that raising minimum wage would increase or decrease taxpayers' payments and saving government subsidy programs. Cost of living is on the rise, like I stated before. Over 25 million Americans would benefit from this raise in income, and it's only asking for an increase of $2.85 an hour, which is better than some of the proposed $15 an hour increases. The article cons, the problems with the articles. The article does not discuss any sort of economic costs, civil costs, any sort of price inflation, any sort of rising prices, rising cost of labor. It strictly discussed the pros of helping families out. It does not include the impacts of any small business owners who may not be able to afford to run their business at a higher minimum wage. And the article also lacks anything that doesn't look at the positive side of raising the minimum wage. They don't look at any of the negatives. It's strictly arbitrarily. They kind of have tunnel vision when they're writing it, and only looking at the positives. This is why we should do it without looking at the other side of the coin, which there is negatives. Some of the actual pros and cons, and some of these they didn't look at. Some of the pros is economic stimulus, which the economy would be stimulated with a higher minimum wage. People would have more money. More spending would happen in the economy. It would be stimulated slightly. Like I stated before, there would be a reduction in government assistance programs, which would save taxpayers money. Inflation will be accounted for. As I stated before, the inflation rate has not been kept up with since, according to this article, in the last 9 years. And there'll be less turnover rate and employees for companies that aren't going to be firing people as often. However, the cons are going to be layoffs, companies that can't afford to have as many employees as they previously did. One of the big cons of increasing the minimum wage is a price increase, which this article would not look at all. The prices of goods that are made by minimum wage workers are obviously going to increase. Fewer companies are going to be willing to hire fewer people and try to maximize the production with the people that they have. And also there will be higher competition for jobs, because the higher rate, more people will be competing for those jobs. A conclusion is this article is extremely biased towards raising the minimum wage, and no thought was given towards any of the cons of raising minimum wage, and the authors use statistics that are, as the bulk of their argument, and statistics, as you know, can be manipulated to suit any needs that you need, and that's not always a great argument when the argument is almost all based off the statistics. These are my references. Does anybody have any questions?